Hi, this is Katie with craftingwithkatie.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make a window card using some layered dies from my creative time. So you want to start out with cutting your card base, and in my case I just did 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it at 4.25 inches. And then I cut a layer that is 4 inches by 5.25. So the first part is to take the bigger of the layered dies. I'm using this one called Just Tags. And I'm going to take the bigger one and center, see how it's going to look centered on my pattern paper. And to keep it in place, I'm going to just use a little bit of adhesive. There we go. So I just want to make sure that's exactly where I want it. Okay. And then because the die is raised around the edges, you kind of have to press down on the bottom here. So here you can see the nice little window it created. So the next part is to center it on my card base so that I can figure out where to put the smaller layer. So here's the smaller layer. You can see it's going to fit just inside, but I need to put a little adhesive on there as well. Alright, that looks good. So I'm going to remove my polka dot layer. And again, I'm going to kind of press from underneath to make sure it sticks. And then I'll run that through the Vagabond. Alright, so that came through. And you can see that is going to fit there, creating a cute little window, and you get to see the layer. So I'm not going to adhere that together yet. I have some other parts that I want to make to this card before I put it all together. So the next thing is I'm going to use this hot air balloon, which is from the Fly Away With Me die set. And I'm going to make a hot air balloon that has a craft base. So I'm going to cut it once in craft. I want the basket to be this brown grid paper. And then for the top part of it, I'm going to have 2 different colors, and you'll see once I stamp on it why I'm doing that. So I'm going to be cutting out 4 pieces right now. Okay, so I went ahead and cut out all the little hot air balloons and then just the basket for this piece. And I also cut out some clouds that are from the same My Creative Time Fly Away With Me die set, because I'll be using those on the card as well. So my next step is to stamp the image that coordinates with this balloon on all of the pieces. And that way I'll be able to paper piece the balloon together and get a little pattern on it. So this is the stamp set that goes with it. It's called Fly Away With Me. And I'm just going to pull out the hot air balloon. There we go. And for the first one, since it's just the basket, I'm just going to ink up just the basket part. Alright, got that little piece, and then this is going to be the base that I'll be building the whole thing on. Okay, so I've got all the little pieces stamped, and what I'm going to do now is go ahead and start cutting everything except for this one, because that will be the base. Alright, our card is coming together. I went ahead and put together the balloon, and in the process I realized I don't know why I die cut the different pattern papers. All I need to do is stamp the image so I could cut out the pieces. So that was a little waste of time. But anyways, I thought it turned out pretty cute. I used one of these little ink daubers and my Paper Tray Ink True Black ink and went around the edges of each piece before I adhered it to the craft hot air balloon, and that just gave it a little more definition. And then I just kind of placed everything out how it's going to be on my card, including the clouds. So for my sentiment, I'm going to use the Fly Away With Me sentiments, the Flying By To Say, and that's going to go in a cloud. And then on the inside of the card, peeking through the window, from Wow So Many Candles, I'm going to use Happy Happy Birthday. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and stamp on this cloud. Actually, I need a little more ink, I think. All right. There. Now this is where it's going to get a little tricky. Let me close up my ink. On the inside of the card, I'm going to use some white cardstock. So when I write, you know, a little message to somebody, it won't be on the craft. So what I've done is cut the piece of white the same size as the patterned blue. So that was the 4 inches by 5 1/4. And to help me figure out exactly where to get my sentiment, I'm going to slide this over and position it so it's right on there, and then I'm going to stamp through the window, which will make my sentiment exactly where I want it. Okay, so I'm just going to see where this will look good. So this was going to end up being down a little bit. I like these little clouds down here. So I'll probably want it right about here. So I'm ready to start putting the whole thing together. And I'm going to use some clear cardstock in my window. So I just took this piece I have of Paper Tray Ink clear cardstock, and it just happened to be a scrap. The size doesn't really matter as long as it's going to be wide enough that it won't show through the blue, which I'll just double check here. That's fine. And there's enough room at the top and bottom to put a bit of adhesive. So I'm going to just glue that down with the ATG. Okay. Try not to get fingerprints on it. And then I can go ahead and get this piece down. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and score my card. I already scored it, just get it creased here. And then I can put this part on the inside, and that will help me make sure I have everything lined up just right. And then we'll be able to look through the window to see this. Alright, so I was going to put that cloud there, the hot air balloon kind of peeking over there, and then my clouds down here. Now I'm just noticing that I did not center this well, and that's going to bug me. There's this one little part here. I think I'm going to try to make some kind of border. You know, just maybe a teeny strip of red that will go right down there, because that's going to annoy me. Then it's the red on red. Maybe I'll do white. Okay, I just went ahead and pulled off this little strip of white cardstock that I believe came from that inside when I was cutting it. And I'm going to use my Bumpy Roads Edger Punch to just go ahead and make a teeny little border. I think my type A personality is showing through, but I don't like that when things aren't centered, and I think this will help it a little bit. Okay. Yeah, something a little different, and it won't bother me so much. You know, that is so skinny. I think I'm just going to use some score tape on it. This is 1/8 inch thick score tape. This is going to be hard to run my ATG down that. This is pretty forgiving. If you go in a wrong direction, you can kind of pull it how you want it. Okay, so what I'm aiming for is the same width over here on the edge of my card. So I'm just going to put this right along here. So I'm going to adhere this down, and then I can do my balloon. So I'll go ahead and use some ATG for this. And before I do the balloon, I'm just going to do my clouds down here. And you could pop this one up, and actually I think I will. A lot of cards I make, I end up mailing, so I try not to give them too much dimension, but this is actually for a coworker. So it's okay to pop it up since I'm just going to be giving it to her at work. And since this one is lower a little bit, you won't see the pop dots like through the window. So you just see a little bit of the clouds. Okay, so the last part is the hot air balloon. I'll put it like right there. So I'm going to use just some ATG here. And there's no like real pretty way to do this. I mean, you could, I've done another card before where I put the same die on the inside too so you couldn't see through at it. Oh, ATG everywhere. But for this, for the part that's going to show through, I'm going to just put some score tape because my adhesive is looking really gummy right now from the ATG, and this might look a little bit neater from the inside. I'll just put a little bit on the basket. All right. I feel like my window's a little dirty. There we go. So how cute is that? And then you open it up and it still says happy birthday on the inside. Thanks so much for watching, and come by and visit my blog craftingwithkatie.com.